was earlier this afternoon. What can you tell us that has changed since then?
Well, earlier this morning we had a credible sighting of the subject that we're looking for off of Barber Road in the town of Clarksville. We're still in the process of, it's an active search to locate him. We would ask any local resident that has any suspicious activity around their property or that they observe in their travels to report it immediately. If they believe they've observed this subject, please contact our state police facility in Batavia at 585-344-6200. The crime scene is still being processed. That will be active throughout the evening and through tomorrow. And at this time, we have not made a positive identification of both the victims. That autopsy will be conducted at the Monroe County Medical Examiner's tentatively tomorrow. We will not be releasing any information about their identities until we have confirmed that and notified family members.
How long did it take? It probably took a while to get a judge to get a warrant for you to go in there and process that scene, right?
Well, it's as I stated earlier, it's a large scene. The family owns approximately 150 acres, and there's multiple buildings. As far as length, I don't know that it was an inordinate amount of time.
Point of my question being, there was no property owner available to give you permission?
That would be correct, yes.
Are they presumed deceased then?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Have New York State Police or any other agencies that you know of been at that house before for any other reason?
We've had prior calls for service involving this subject and the family, but I won't get into those.
So were the people who were found deceased, did they live in that house? In other words, were they recognizable given the fact that state police had been there before?
I understand your question. As I stated, we don't have a positive identification. I can tell you that the information we have, there are 3 residents of that property, and we are looking for the one resident, the 17-year-old boy that was last seen at that property when the fire department arrived. We have not located the mother or father.
Can you address it all, Major? We've been told by those identifying themselves as friends of him in town and people calling our newsroom that this was a troubled youth with a very troubled home life. Can you address any of that at all?
I can't at this time, and I don't think it would be appropriate. I understand the family and friends in the community. It's a very good community. There's a lot of caring people here, and I understand their concern and the typical reaction that people would have. But for us, and part of our investigation, for us to comment on those matters would be inappropriate.
Major, should people in this area, do they have to still shelter in place or take any precautions?
I would recommend that they still take precaution. We have received several phone calls and requests for checking open doors and property checks of that matter. We have no problem, and we would welcome those requests. So yes, I would say that make sure your doors are locked, the keys are not left in your vehicles are locked. If someone comes up to your door, you need to not open it to strangers. And if you're not sure, be safe. Call our number.
What is the search plan moving forward now that we are getting close to getting dark earlier?
The search does not end. It goes into a different phase during the nighttime. Obviously, as you can see being down here, it's a heavily wooded area. We will not be going into the the dense area of the woods, but we do not stop our search. It continues through the evening, and come daylight in the morning, we will then again conduct searches through any area that we feel are credible for possible locations of the subject if he has not been located prior to that.
Some schools were closed today. Any plans on those schools being closed tomorrow as well?
We plan on having the discussions tomorrow morning that we had this morning with the same school districts. It is always their decision as to what they do. I would recommend that if we have not located this subject by school time tomorrow, that they at least consider a lockout.
Would you tend to believe that he's taken shelter someplace inside? I mean, it's been a long time. It's not the balmiest of days out here.
I'm sure all of you have been to scenes similar to this, if not exactly like the same. To be able to predict exactly what someone's going to do, you'd have to be in their mind, and none of us are. Would I want to go into a building? Yes. If you know the woods, which I would presume if you grow up in an area like this, you could probably have an area that you would be comfortable with in the woods. So I wouldn't rule anything out.
Hard to start a nice warm campfire, though, without being spotted, don't you
Yes,
think?
I would tend to think so.
Any help from deer hunters or anything like that?
I apologize, but Mr. Graver's been trying to get a question.
It's not even that important.
Well, I won't disagree, but go ahead.
I appreciate it, Major. You had said before about folks checking their property to be vigilant, looking for signs of disturbance or something like that. What specifically should people be on the lookout for? Should they be going into campers if they're on their property? Should they be going out into the woods if maybe they own dozens of acres or something like that and they have a hunting cabin?
No, I wouldn't recommend them to do anything like that, and for good reason, which they probably typically would not. We're coming into evening time, and I would anticipate that most people around here, although they are very comfortable in the woods, would not go into the woods at night for any reason whatsoever unless they absolutely had to. And the curiosity is not a must. So, no, I don't anticipate that being an issue.
Major, we heard a report that someone had spotted Larson in a truck in Cuba. Is that a credible?
We've had several leads that we followed through, and we have no confirmed sighting of him in that location.
Major, you said earlier today during the first press conference that the folks, once firefighters went in and once investigators were able to get in, that the two people were obviously deceased. What did you mean by obviously deceased? Were there signs of foul play?
I think a reasonable person can read whatever they choose to into that comment. To go beyond that would be inappropriate at this time. I understand your question, but that's the closest I'm going to come.
Today with this search, what were the conditions like? Did you run into any issues with weather or anything like that?
With weather, no. We were very lucky with the weather. The conditions were fine. We were able to get aviation and drones up there, and we had very good visibility within the wooded area. But again, whether there's leaves or not, it's very dense woods.
You mentioned helicopters and drones. Can you say any other technology or tools that you were using?
No,
for
I
this
won't go
search?
into the details of our investigation.
Roughly how many people were involved in the search?
I won't go into that. That's anything else, folks?
Seeked any help from hunters or anything like that?
We have put out requests. I would, and thank you for that question. I would request that hunters avoid this area until our investigation is complete as far as processing the scene and locating the subject, just for their own safety and our safety. I would ask, and we have put through the New York State Watch Center, it's a notice through the telephone providers to all the cells that would receive it in this general area to please do that.
Does he have a cell phone, do we think?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Any other questions?
Yes. Is there any more on the cause of the fire that originated all of this?
I can't give you a cause and origin right now. I don't have that information available. As soon as we have that, we'll update you.
Just to follow up on Mr. Graber's question over there, you had said he is Mr. Graber. After all, you had said earlier today that there had been no contact with this individual that you're looking for, and that has not changed since 11 o'clock this morning.
We have had no contact with the individuals. What we talked about earlier, yes. There have been the credible sighting that I referenced earlier today. There was contact with a local resident, but beyond that, that's the only contact that we have had. Not that we have had, that anyone to our knowledge has had.
It's a relative of his.
Crime scene after the fire.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
How intact is the crime scene still because of the fire?
The fire, as I stated earlier, was small and contained in one room. There wasn't a lot of damage, so it's.
Is young Larson the one who summoned the fire department?
I don't have that information in front of me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Earlier you had talked about weapons in the home and you had some concerns about that. Is that still the case?
There's always the case until we can definitively say that we have possession of all weapons that the family owned or that the subject has access to. We have secured a number of weapons. I don't know right now at this point if that's all of them. So, thank you, folks. We will have another update for you as soon as we can, but it very well may not be until tomorrow morning. All right?
Thank you.
Have a safe drive.